Hi everyone. Thank you very much for coming. And basically, it's pretty much not the last one, but the one before last. So thanks for sticking. So yeah, I'm Kaan. I'm from London. Like you said, I'm a Google Developer Group London lead, and I'm also a mobile software engineer. You can find me either on my website or on Twitter with this username. So today I'm going to talk about slices. But before that, how many of you here are Android developers? That's good. How many of you have heard about Android slices? That's a good number as well. OK, so yes, slices are a concept Google announced last Google I/O. So, well, basically this year. What they are basically they allow you to display your content and interact with your users outside of your app in other apps. So. This example here is from Photos. So when you search Hawaii in Google search, actually a Google search app, you see the content from Google Photos, your photos from Hawaii in this case. So just to warn you, this is actually not available currently. So this was the example they gave at Google I/O, but right now there is no app that is using slices actually. So this is kind of a very early preview, actually. So in general, what are slices? In these different descriptions, you can see like they are UI templates or interactive snippets. So these are basically part of your app, a little bit of functionality from your app displayed outside somewhere, in another app, basically. You can display rich dynamic content in a slice, and you can also interact with your users. So that part is quite important in this case. So the first example was again Google search. So when someone searches an information that's relevant to your app, that your app can display, then that's basically where it can just show up. And like in the future also, they are planning to add it to Google Assistant as well. So what are slices good for? Basically, they help you increase the engagement of your app. So you can basically satisfy your users more because the thing is, they won't even need to open your app in order to get access to your content, to interact with your app. All they need to do is to search, and they won't even need to think that that's your app that's displaying this data. So it will magically be displayed, be presented to your users. OK, so how many of you have heard of App Actions, which was also something that was announced this year at Google I/O? Yes, App Actions we are going to now see, but actually, yeah, let's just go forward. I will come back to this one. So App Actions are kind of, again, like it allows you to show up in some part of the app of the OS completely outside of your app, and try to help user basically. Say that you are there to help them, to I don't know, assist them. For example, this one on the right side, you see that when you just select a text, Google itself knows that the Android system knows that this string is a name of a singer. So it just suggests directly Spotify app. So you don't need to actually open Spotify app, go to search tab, type the name again, and and then like find the songs. You can just click on this button, and basically you don't even need to remember that you have Spotify installed. As soon as you select this string, again, this text, Android just recommends you this app. So this is a great way to actually get engagement. Basically, it means that, again, like there are lots of cases that someone installs your app and then forgets about it, and then months later, like while scrolling the app list, sees that like, oh, I have this app, and actually I didn't use it for a long time, and then deletes it, uninstalls it. So in this way, basically, you can just like pop up here and there and like remind that you are like there to be used. Your app is there to be used, and then get engagement. And also on the left side, another way. So in the apps list, top row is the like kind of suggested apps, mostly like most frequent used, or depending on what you used recently, it changes. And the second row is again app actions. So again, depending on the context, for example, if you have an earphone plugged or like a Bluetooth earphone connected to the phone, then it suggests Spotify or those kind of things again. And yeah, coming back to slices, they are in Android Jetpack library, so they are backwards compatible. So that's good as well. And then they are built on top of basically this concept. So app actions are not yet available at all. So there's not even a developer preview. There are a few companies that have already integrated with it, like WhatsApp, Slack, Spotify. But other than that, it's not open to like other developers. But slices are actually. So, OK, so let's talk about the implementation now. First thing to do is like obviously you have your app. We are assuming that you already have the application set up. It's an existing code project. So you just create a new slice provider. Yes, so you just basically, there's a wizard for that, so you don't need to do it manually. Then once you go through this in Android Studio, you get this wizard pop-up window, and then you start basically typing. The class name is the name of the class. Well, in general, the fields are very obvious. So the most important things are these three. So URI authorities is basically generally your package name, or well, you can basically append other things as well, but it's mostly your package name. And then host is the base of the URL that you want to capture, and URI authorities again. So this one is the path, basically, the part after the host, after the base of the URL. And then once you do this, these are automatically added to your Gradle. What it is that like, contain extensions, because it's, again, it's part of Jetpack, so it's adding this. And these two are the important parts. We are going to see the details, how to use actually these dependencies. And then in the manifest, you have basically, like there are things that we just added in the previous screen, typing filling out the wizard. So all these like authorities, and then host, then schema wasn't there actually, so you might need to edit that. And then path prefix as well. So this basically allows you to capture URLs, like in this case, HTTP, then iamkaan.com/anything, basically in this case. So, and the difference, like the important thing here is that this is the category that you need to add, or make sure that it's there. If you go through Wizard, it's already there. So if you are doing it manually, this is the category you need to add. And then it also creates a slice provider class that extends this slice provider. I named it slice provider, very creative. But yeah, that's kind of flexible. So it's extending the slice provider class, which is in the dependency that we added. And then in this class, we have a few functions that are overridden. First one is on create slice provider. This is basically the place that you need to do your setup, like whatever you are going to need in the slice. This is where you need to create those things. And then you return a Boolean, which basically, if it's successful, if you successfully created everything, just you return true. In this case, we don't actually have anything to set up. That's why we just directly return true. And then we have onMap intent to URI. This is automatically there, actually. You don't need to really modify it. But what it does is it gets the intent, because this is a kind of a content provider. It gets the intent and converts it to URI. And then this method on bind slice, you actually get that URI that you created in the previous one, in the previous method. And then it expects you to return a slice. Now, from now on, we are going to modify this method and create different types of slices. OK. So let's start. So in general, the slice provider class has context by default. So if the slice is created successfully, then you get the context. So you can use it anywhere in the slice provider. And since we need this context, if we don't have the context in this method, we just return null, so we don't proceed. And then, so this is the path we are looking for. So we don't want any string after this. So if we successfully get this path, then we just show something, which is basically, I'm going to talk about this builder in a second. But yeah, if we found this path that we are looking for, so this could be anything, basically. You can modify this. Then we display URI found. If not, then URI not found. So we are now going to focus on list builder. So this is, when you run that code, this is what happens. This is another thing that at the end of the talk I'm going to talk about. But this is a slice viewer, which is an APK that you download from GitHub that Google created. It's just for preview right now. So when you run, it launches that app. And then it shows that it needs a permission in order to show this slice. And then you give the permission, and then the next thing you see is this. So you see the URI here, and then the actual slice that you created just under it. So yes, let's focus on the builder now. So list builder is, in general, slices are actually lists of items. So that's why you always use this list builder. And then it takes a context, which we made sure that it is there. It's like above. And then slice URI is the the URI that you just received from the method. So you don't need to do anything about that as well. And the only thing basically here that's kind of you need to decide on at this line is the last parameter, which is the duration that you want to display the slice for, kind of. So infinity means just display it as long as the slice viewer is there. So once it's called, basically, once the slice is displayed, it will not automatically disappear. Or you can just give time duration in milliseconds. Basically, it just takes a long. And then the next line is adding a row. Like I said, this is a list. So the first, basically, it needs at least one row. I'm using Kotlin here, so it is a slice, actually. A slice, yeah, a slice. So when you say add row, you get a slice here, and then you modify that. So in this case, I just set a title for the slice. And that's the only thing that we display. So let's start modifying now. First thing is, like, again, we have this set title here again. This is a title. And then you can add a content description to the slice, which allows you to add accessibility features, basically, for those who are using these features. This will be read out loud, kind of. But in terms of the display, in terms of UI, there's no difference. OK, so next, you can add subtitle. It's basically just a text under the title. And then you can add title items. These are displayed on the right side of the slice. So there are a few things that you can add. First one is date. It's actually milliseconds, just basically a long. So when you add this, so this is like current time minus a minute. It automatically, the slice viewer in this case, automatically converts it to human-readable text, in this case, like 1 minute ago, for example. So you could use this for, like, if you are displaying a message or information, news or something, like you can display when it was created. OK, so if you add a second item, so in this case, the second item is an icon. So there's this icon compat. Again, you can use directly. It's a helper class, kind of. Then you say create with resource. There are a few other methods that you can use here, depending on where you are getting the resource from. And then this, you just pass the resource. And then this one is deciding on, like, how to display this icon, like small, big, or large. This one is just as an icon. So now slowly, let's see the next step. So we had this time, which just disappeared, because this is a setter item. So when you set title item, it just, whatever you added last is the one that's visible. The rest just disappears. So instead of that, OK, wait, let's focus on first, let's focus on this icon now. So instead of icon, you can set a large image, which displays a basically bigger image instead of an icon. And in like this slice viewer doesn't display, but normally you would see a like bigger image in this case, for example, because it's a large image. There's also small image as well. Now, let's focus on this right top. So this slice viewer is, again, for development purposes. So it is created by Google just for you to test your slice. But normally, a slice viewer, which can be Google search app, for example, can decide like whether to show the whole content of your slice, or just part of it, or just an icon. So you can just change this. For example, this one is just a list item. Then you can just, like, by clicking on this right top, that's a menu, and then you can change this just to test your slice in different variations, so that you are ready for either one of them. So again, you can change it to icon, in which case you just see the icon, no title, no subtitle, nothing. So that's why your slices should be, I'll come back to that. Your slices should be meaningful in any of these three scenarios, basically. And they should ideally take the user. So for example, in this case, there's no information user can actually get from it. So this icon, when you click on it, it should take the user to a relevant screen in your app where you can actually display the real content that you were aiming for. Now, instead of that set title item, you can do add end item. And in this case, you can add, I think, up to 3 items to the right side. So now we see that the both icons, not icon actually, just information that we wanted to display are there. Now, again, as we mentioned, the slices are actually lists of rows, lists of items. So you can add multiple rows. In this case, the first one is the main item that you should give a context to the user, and the other 2 are well, basically optional, like details kind of. In this case, for example, let's imagine that you have an app that allows users to like set some like options for your app. So this is like enabled, disabled. You can think like that. So just like extra information that you can give. And then, yeah. So this is the full view. But again, slice viewer can decide that there's not enough space to show everything that your slice is trying to show, and decide that like I will just show the first item. So that's why your first item should be like giving user enough information that user will like want to click to see the rest of the information, basically. So the first item should take user to a screen in your app that displays this version of the slice. OK, so let's then start actually adding actions to the item. I just kept talking about taking users somewhere, but how do we do that? So now we added this line, set primary action here, which calls a method called action. Let's see what that method does. OK, so that method actually returns a slice action. That's, again, another concept in the slices world. So this is pretty much like displaying a notification, actually. It works like similar. So you create a slice action using this helper class again, or, well, factory, however you want to call. And then you pass a pending intent using, again, just the same logic as a notification. So this pending intent is going to be called, and like in this case, for example, this clicking on this slice will open the main activity of your app. And then you set a icon for the action. Well, so this one is displaying actually is not displaying the icon because it's the main. Well, yeah, it's the main item. So you are adding this action to the whole slice, basically. Once you do this slice becomes a button, kind of. And then, yes, so again, this icon actually doesn't mean anything in this case. And then the last one is what this action does. Again, this is for accessibility reasons. And then you have this, just a second. Yes, so you can add different types of widgets, let's say, UI widgets to the slices. First one is a switch. So you can just add a toggle, basically. That could mean a setting, again, in your app. So in this case, in this example, we are using a thing called nerd mode. So in your app, there is a setting where users can enable nerd mode. So we have the title, And then the detail is the nerd mode enhances developer performance. And then the user can enable or disable this. So the difference between this slide and the previous one is that we now pass a broadcast receiver instead of an activity. So we are going to actually do something with this now. It doesn't just open the app. It actually doesn't open the app at all. So once you click on it, now we have toast. Actually, we just displayed a toast, which just shows the state of the toggle. But yeah, what happens on the background is that in this broadcast receiver, we have the onReceive method. This is an ordinary broadcast receiver. And then you have these extras by default provided by a slice library. This toggle state is one of them. It basically returns the state of the toggle clearly. And then we just display a toast for that. Ideally, what you would do here is to update your database based on this setting. And maybe if you are doing other stuff with this setting, like, I don't know, reduce to the light of the screen or something like that, this is where you would do it, actually. Now, you can also add sliders. So this is, again, to get more, like in this case, for example, we want to actually users to be able to set the intensity of the nerdness. And again, we have a description of what this actually does. And then, yeah, so you add an input range to the slice. And then you are building here, basically. We set the title, subtitle, which is displayed here under the main object, main item. And then we set the maximum value and the current value, the initial value, basically. In this case, it's hard-coded. We are going to see now how to actually make it not hard-coded. Yeah, so what happens is that in the broadcast receiver now, in onReceive, we have this range value instead of the toggle state. And then, again, we display a toast, which is just showing the percentage of the slider. So let's make this slice more interactive. So we, for example, in this case, we set it, but user actually doesn't know what's the percentage. So instead of that here, now we are using broadcast receiver .value, which is a, well, again, this is a very plain implementation. But what it is that this is a static value in the broadcast receiver, in this case. So you can just directly get from there. And in the broadcast receiver, what we do is that once we get this value, we set it. And then know update this value. But more important thing is that we need to let slice know that now there's a new data, so you need to update it yourself, kind of. So what we do is here we set this content, which should be the same as the one that you set at the beginning in the manifest file. So you set this content. This is something I'm using basically to test stuff. And then you use content resolver, which is an existing concept in Android world and in general. And then you call notify change with this URI. And then slice can actually, basically when you slide, you can actually update this value. One important thing to keep in mind is that within the during creation of the slice, you shouldn't do hard work, not this one, but this one. Basically, in this method, you shouldn't do some hard work like network requests or hard database operations and those kind of things. And you should return this slice as soon as possible to the displayer, to the viewer, because basically like it's a search, so it's kind of user needs to see the information as soon as possible, kind of like you can think like that. And so what is the current state actually? So this is like this displayer is not really user-friendly and user-friendly. Nobody actually has it except for a few developers. Yeah, so that viewer is again created by Google. It's literally a release, a GitHub release on a Google repository. You just download the APK and install it to your emulator, your phone, whatever. So obviously, no user will have access to that. Actually, he will want to install it. So currently you can create slices, but nobody will see them until Google actually launches this final product. But there is a promise again, like we saw this. There's this photos example. Again, when users searches for Hawaii, they see on Google Photos, but it will actually, the photos from Hawaii. Another example is like when they just type get a ride, you Lyft app just appears there, displays data like the time to home, time to work, and also like it displays how much it will cost actually. So user doesn't need to even, again. So for example, think about that, a scenario. The user has both Lyft and Uber apps. They just type this and Lyft just appears while Uber doesn't. So this is a big advantage basically for Lyft, for example, in this case. And finally, a settings app can also do this. It doesn't need to be a commercial app. So when you search for data, it's just like you can enable, disable data, mobile data or data roaming, just directly from the Google search app, actually. And that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. Yeah, that's not mine. So yeah, thank you very much for, again, coming here and spending your time here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Kaan. And let's have a look at the 2 questions that we have here. Is guaranteed that the slices will be displayed, or we should do the SEO on the slices to get a better ranking?
Well, in general, there is no clear explanation for that, but it all depends on. First condition is that users should have that app in the phone installed. So that's the first condition again. So this is not like a way to get users. It's more like to keep your users happy or make them happier. Other than that, if there are multiple, like for example, in case of Uber and Lyft, if both has actually a slice, I am not sure honestly which one will show like what is the logic behind it, but I would think that like one thing could be that the usage of the slice, basically, if it's not slice, the app itself. So if user is using one of them more often, it might show up like above the other one, because this is based on actions, app actions, and app actions are generally using the usage information, basically. Like for example, those. In one of the screenshots, we had this list of apps, and then on top we had 2 items, for example, WhatsApp and phone app, Google phone app. Those are appearing there based on users' usage statistics. So I would think that the more user uses your app, it's more likely that it will appear higher than the others.
Okay. Well, one curiosity question, tabs or spaces?
Well, I use Android Studio, so I use tabs, but it converts it to spaces, so I don't mind generally.
Fair enough. And do we have any control over where the slices will be displayed?
No. So again, there is a library, like basically there is a way for you to create a slice viewer actually yourself. So anyone actually can create this slice viewer, and it's kind of like a how to say. it's basically, again, this is like, for example, Google app, Google search app is one of the examples again. That is just an app that's implementing this slice viewer concept that they created. There's a class actually called slice viewer, so you just need to extend that and tell Android, tell the OS that you can display slices. And then in your app, basically, like if you have a search concept in your app, when user types this query, your app will get these slices from OS automatically. So like basically any app that can display slices will get this information. So you don't really have control over where it can be displayed, really.
Okay. And the last question, will be there any support to show setting defined for setting fragment, even in slices?
Just adding some flag XML. So yeah, you would need to know the answer, actually, I guess. So you would need to create that slice. You would have to have a slice provider and create that UI using the slice creator that we saw, basically that structure. So you would have to go through that separately for the settings that you want to display in Slice. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kaan.
Thank you.